Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where there's a real problem developing. I know, another one, but yes, there is another problem. Now, we've been so focused on whether or not streaming is the Pandora's box of Hollywood, these day-and-date releases, that I think Hollywood either isn't realizing that China is starting to take over the global movie market, or they're like, let's just save that problem for another day. Maybe they feel that once Hollywood gets back up on its feet, it will no longer be a problem, but I don't know. I think that at some point, can we ever even check the Chinese box office numbers if we wanted to? I think this is a problem, though, and I'll be curious to know what you think down below. All right, so there's also a lot of spin going on right now. Hollywood's eager for any good headlines, and so I think that since China is supplying some, that's also giving some forgiveness from Hollywood as well. But the bottom line is that the pandemic has made China the movie-going capital of the world. Again, supposedly, a lot of shady stuff happens over there across the board, not just in the entertainment industry. And so don't underestimate the aggressiveness of China to make this permanent, because the Chinese government would love to claim that they're the new Hollywood. We thought we were just going to share it. That's what Hollywood thought. Hollywood was like, oh, it'll be America and China as friends. And China's like, I think I'd like to have it all to myself. And so, And Hollywood is so reliant on Chinese box office, even in normal times, for money and headlines, that again, they're either just letting them do it or letting China have their day in the sun before hopefully the US box office comes roaring back to life itself. Although, again, as I said at the beginning, did we break the US box office with streaming options and training audiences to watch movies at home? That remains to be seen. So yes, 6 of the top 10 movies of the year to date are from China, where almost all movie theaters are open, although running at only 50%, with everyone required to wear masks and register via an app for contact tracing if necessary. Also, China has a lot more, Asia in general has a lot more experience with these kinds of viruses. Mask wearing has been pretty common over there. They certainly went through it themselves a couple of months before the rest of the world. So maybe it's real. Nobody knows what's going on over there, including when a pandemic, came up. So it's tricky. But, this is very aggressive in the entertainment business. But it does go to show, supposedly, again, that just put an asterisk next to all the stuff from China because we can't verify any of their information. But it shows the potential of the Chinese box office because look how well it's doing only at 50%. It's only up and running at 50%. Now, remember, China's box office is tightly controlled and influenced by the government. They control what kind of movies are made. If you don't pay your taxes, you can disappear for a long time. They seize your assets. It's crazy stuff over there. And they not only do they keep a very tight leash on their own entertainment industry, but they also do on Hollywood with blackout periods where only local films can play. And I think that this is going to even expand. And that might be when Hollywood finally is like, whoa, because China is so enjoying dominating the global box office headlines that it was reported earlier this month in Variety that Disney's Eternals and Shang-Chi, and remember, Disney is the most friendly studio with China, that they might not get Chinese release dates at all. That would be incredible. And I wonder what Disney's response would be in that situation. They have several theme parks. They have in Asia, 3. They just built their newest one in Shanghai. They have a lot of money invested in China. Now, who knows what the official reason China will come up with will be as to why these movies won't get Chinese release dates. But unofficially, I would wager that maybe China doesn't want Hollywood to take over for local films by Hollywood trying to make their own Chinese films. I think China might be like, that's our market. You can't come in here and try and do it yourself, which would be interesting because that's the incentive for Disney to make these films to some degree because they want to get they're like, oh, see how well our movies are doing now? Imagine how well they would do if they were catering directly to that audience. Although it didn't work out that way with Mulan. Don't worry, we're going to mention that in a minute. Now, I also want to point out that Chloe Zhao, who of course is the director of The Eternals, some of her critical comments against China have angered the Chinese government, and they already downplayed Nomadland's release, which might be why that film may be not get a release in China. And who knows if the people of China will be even upset if they don't get these movies, because they didn't care for Mulan, and they did not respond positively to the Shang-Chi trailer. They are, in fact, quite negative about it. But it's impossible to know if those negative comments are legit, because they could just be coming from the Chinese government. I mean, they're anonymous commenters online. Who knows where they come from? So again, giant asterisks. Now, also, why is Hollywood so protective of the Chinese box office when they only get 25% of that revenue? Well, 25% of these huge numbers is nothing to sneeze at. And then also, these headlines are very valuable, headlines like this, because Universal was able to tout the biggest global debut yet for a pandemic film. But if you read the small print for this headline, that money is almost exclusively from China, where the Fast and Furious franchise is beloved. Does very well there historically. So while many in the industry and the trades were quick to point to this headline and say, look, the box office is coming back to life. Warner Brothers, you're so dumb for that, for committing the whole year to day-and-date releases on HBO Max. Well, that's jumping the gun, that criticism, because we still don't know what's going on with the global box office. This is just more evidence that China's box office has come back to life. Also, I think it's grown. They were rapidly expanding the number of movie theaters in China right before the pandemic, particularly outside of major cities, to tap into the more rural parts of China, because they just have such a huge population that might also be responsible for this, sudden growth in the Chinese box office. Because remember, Godzilla vs. Kong got off to a great start globally as well, and everyone was saying the global box office had returned then, but then it got sucker punched by the pandemic as well, and things slowed down significantly. We don't know what's going on in other countries. France and the UK and many European movie theaters just opened, and I think some of you still don't have your movie theaters open. So this is really just too early to make any kind of call on what F9's box office numbers are going to look like. Although I'm very happy it's going to do well in China, where, again, it's historically done quite well. So at least that is legitimately back to normal. Speaking of getting sucker punched, F9 got hit hard with a 33% Rotten Tomatoes score. Fast and Furious hasn't had an RT score that low, or even rotten for that matter, for over a decade. That's shocking. And a 5.6 audience score on IMDb. And also, some of you messaged me that it's leaked. A very high quality copy is already leaked online for pirating. So what happened? What a disaster. So what happened was that Universal allowed the trades to release their reviews, just the trades, because of the Chinese launch. And they told all other reviewers that we would have to wait until June 16th to review the film, to release our reviews, closer to the film's domestic release of June 25th. In fact, it's not going to hit most countries until mid-June. I think the next release date is June 17th. And they've spaced out the screenings because of the pandemic. So also, by the way, speaking of release dates, F9 was supposed to open Memorial Day weekend stateside, but as you might recall, it moved, so Cruella and A Quiet Place 2 swooped in there and took the weekend instead. So F9 was supposed to be more of a global release instead of this ridiculous month. Although in the past, like a Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, because of the World Cup that year, had about a month between its domestic and overseas release, and it still made $1 billion. So movies can do it, but it's tough. It's tough, I think, with online social media to have a movie's release date so far apart across the globe. It just makes the movie seem old, I think. But anyway, as I said, it hits most countries now. It's only in a handful of countries like China, Russia, that's about it, and a couple other ones. But it's really not going to start hitting other countries until mid-June. So this early Chinese release date has, I think, become a problem for it. Also, there'll be no more new exciting box office headlines until mid-June, unless it just keeps making a ton of movie in China, which it could. Universal's solution when it comes to the bad reviews is to move the embargo date actually up to this Tuesday. But that's a month out. I guess that's good, because maybe everyone will forget about the bad reviews if the low RT score holds. I mean, maybe it'll get saved. Maybe the RT score will go up. 33 is already pretty low, though. And the trades, it's U.S. trades. So you can't say it's like it's a cultural thing. One country likes it, another might, not. So I think that kind of gives an indication as to where the reviews might head. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday when the embargo lifts everywhere. And do you think that because it's a month out, do you think that maybe the movie can get around bad reviews? Again, Fast and Furious has not had this problem for over a decade, because I think you might be inclined to think that Fast and Furious has always battled bad reviews, but it's always been, I think, acknowledged as a pure popcorn film that does very well in that regard. I've enjoyed the movies. I'm going to wait, by the way, to review the film until mid-June, just so you know. I decided not to change my RSVP for a screening. I was going to go tomorrow night so I could make the embargo if it was in an IMAX or Dolby screening, but it's not. So I'm like, I'm not going to rush to see the movie a month out in a crappy little theater. I'm just going to wait until I can see it. I have a nice screening all booked that I'm very happy with. I'm hoping, I'm rolling the dice that maybe it will be in a Dolby or an IMAX by that point. So my review will not go up on Tuesday, but I believe most people's probably will. It's so early. It's not even good for me to post a review that early for a film, quite frankly. So what are your thoughts on F9 with all this new info? Are you planning to see it in theaters? Is that the only option, or will you wait until it's on digital? There's no word yet, by the way, on how long that window will be. Universal typically does 17 days at this point, 3 weeks. However, they have the right to extend that if it's a big movie, so it could be much longer for F9. As for this weekend's box office, domestic, as you can see, moviegoers and Hollywood are just simply in a holding pattern for Cruella and A Quiet Place 2 next weekend, for the holiday weekend. But both movies, by the way, will see Thursday night showings return, which have been gone for the pandemic. So that's exciting. It's like old times. A Quiet Place 2 is likely to win the box office as it's theaters only, but if Cruella can be queen of the box office next weekend, considering it's also going to be on Disney Plus day and date, that will be a very nice and fashionable feather in her cap. By the way, we're having our live watch-along party for Cruella a week from today, Sunday, May 30th, at 7 p.m. It's going to be so much fun. We have 2 back-to-back screenings. The next one will be after that, watch-along parties. The one after that will be June 4th for The Conjuring 3. All right, so let's head over to streaming. Speaking of streaming, for the week of April 19th, Falcon and Winter Soldier is still #1. Hooray! WandaVision was a huge hit, but Falcon and Winter Soldier is stronger, so that's fantastic. I'll be curious to see how Loki fares. But look at Shadow and Bone debuting in second place. I'm so happy. What's taking so long with that season 2 announcement? And where the heck is Invincible? I checked this time. I didn't miss it. It only popped up so far once in the top 10. And again, it was just at number 10, so I missed it when I was doing my filming. But it's still not here. This week was its second to last episode. So maybe next week, the finale was a big deal. Maybe because, so this was Falcon and Winter Soldier's finale, actually, come to think of it. So maybe when it had no competition from Falcon and Winter Soldier with a new episode, maybe we'll see it pop up next week on the chart when the full season had aired. As for streaming films, it's a Netflix and Disney Plus world, although Disney Plus is relying heavily on library content, whereas Netflix has a lot of new releases that are connecting. Thunder Force is still up there. As for Netflix this week, Army of the Dead debuted at #1, but the real test will be how it holds from week to week. Like Woman in the Window is still up there. Amy Adams has some star power, particularly on streaming. I'm impressed, especially because the movie's so bad. As Mitchell's versus the Machines is still up there. I didn't care for that movie, but a lot of people did. So that has tremendous staying power. The Upshaws is doing very well, and so is Jupiter's Legacy. I know a lot of you hated on that show, but its staying power is impressive. Although, where's its season 2 announcement? I thought about it, and I think Shadow and Bone and Jupiter's Legacy might suffer from very high budget. So maybe Netflix mulls over those renewals a little bit more carefully than it might for a less expensive show. And also remember, it's not just viewership that is important to Netflix, but what's really valuable to them is subscription. Does it keep people subscribed? Does it bring in new subscribers? That's what makes a show valuable to the service. Because, clearly Netflix can air anything and people will watch it. So they have a little bit of a different metric for success. Then on iTunes, Eric Bana's The Dry. You wonder why everybody was interviewing Eric Bana this past week? It's because he has this new movie. And it's a big hit in its native Australia, by the way, where theaters also are mostly open because they're doing very well with coronavirus. And it's #1 on iTunes. While Mads Mikkelsen makes a lot of films overseas. Good for him. He's booked in busy. And then Christoph Waltz also has a new movie in the top 10 that he actually directed, and he's calling himself C. Waltz now. I'm like, what are you doing? I've never seen someone go from so cool to just kind of embarrassing themselves. But he does have a movie in the top 10, so he's got that going for him. And then Godzilla vs. Kong and Raya are doing very well for purchase. Godzilla vs. Kong for the first time at $30, finally available to purchase. So it came out at the end of March. So it's about 2 months. Disney puts their movies on iTunes a month out from being on Disney Plus, but it looks like HBO Max has been waiting 2 months. And then Raya was also available for purchase for $30 for a while now, but it just dropped down to a $20 purchase, and as you can see, is doing very well. That's some nice poster frame art for it, some nice key art. As for this coming weekend, again, it's Cruella versus A Quiet Place 2, with Quiet Place 2 theaters only, and Cruella in theaters and available on Disney Plus for $30. But you don't get any extras, you don't own it. I wish we got the extras for that price point. I guess it is cheaper than going to the theater, so that's the reasoning. Netflix has a lot. Their movie of the week is feel-good family flick Blue Miracle, based on a true story. Plus, a new season of Master of None, focusing on Lena Waithe, started actually today. And then later this week, Netflix will have the final season of The Kominsky Method, the second half of season 5 of Lucifer, which has a very potent fan base. Overseas hit Ragnarok debuts its season 2, and the new anime series Eden. So that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And then also be sure to join for the Cruella Watch Along a week from today, Sunday, May 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You need your own copy of the movie to participate, but we're going to have a great time. I have my snack ordered already. I'm going with a black and white theme to go with Cruella, and I encourage you to do the same, and I'll be asking you what your snacks are. You can tweet me your snacks too right before the live stream. It's going to be great. But also because it's a holiday weekend next weekend, Movie Math will air on Monday. So Sunday night, 7 p.m., we'll do our Cruella live watch-along party, and then the next day, we'll talk about how it did at the box office. All right, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.